Welcome in, everybody, to another episode of The Most Accurate Podcast. I am your host, Addison Hayes, joined, as always, by one of the most accurate rankers in the entire fantasy community, John Paulson. John, how are we doing now after 1 week down in the NFL season? We're entering week 2, Thursday night game tomorrow night with your Green Bay Packers. How are we feeling today?
Feeling all right. Heading to Wisconsin this afternoon for that Packer game with my son. Excited for that. Week 1 was a mixed bag. I discovered today that I lost FFPC main event game where I scored like 168 points or something, which is really, really high total. I discovered that I lost it on the DJ Moore desperation pitch fumble. I didn't know that I lost it on that. I knew I lost it by less than a point. But I had like one of my best weekends ever at Prize Picks. So it was some good and some bad.
Nice. I had heard. I saw some people on Twitter that were like, "Oh, I lost my matchup because of that DJ Moore thing." My buddy said that his other buddy from work lost his matchup like that, and now you're saying that you got hit by it too. That's so unfortunate. I've never had something like that. So knock on wood that ever happens to me.
Well, also scoring 168 and losing is bad enough, and then also losing on the last play on that type of a play, it's just.
Was it another like you were second highest and he was highest scoring?
I think I shut down the tab. I am trying to move on to week 2. I don't know. I didn't look at it. I just know I scored a lot and lost. I hate that.
Yeah. Yep. I hate that too. Well, we're moving on to week 2. Keeping our eyes set towards the future here. And we are looking at week 2 sneaky starts. So we did this last week. We each have a pick for all 4 positions, so 8 total players, and then we'll also end out with a Bleacher Nation fantasy card that I think your picks hit last week, and then mine sold by like 3 yards. Chuba, they said that they didn't want to run him into the ground. They ended up giving him like 21 touches, and he somehow still didn't get over 60 rushing yards. So it was all there for him, but Carolina's offense kind of sucked. So hopefully we'll be better this week. My other Bleacher Nation fantasy card that I dropped actually did hit, and that was a four-legger. So we'll see what happens this week. Anyway, moving on, quarterback position, sneaky starts. John, do you want to kick us off here at the quarterback spot?
Yeah, just to wrap up the Prize Picks, I did post a $4.44 5-play from my sneaky starts. Tillman, Flacco, Hunter Henry, Pat Freiermuth, who cleared his number by a half yard, and Tony Pollard over 15 and a half rushing attempts. That $4.44 paid $79.92. So I've actually got a 6 play I'm going to release this week. My props went 6-1, so I'm turning into a tout. I'm way too confident right now. So my first sneaky start for this particular podcast is JJ McCarthy. Atlanta 27th in adjusted fantasy points allowed to quarterbacks last season. They gave up 167 yards, 3 touchdowns to Baker Mayfield, and then Mayfield also added 39 yards rushing. McCarthy can run as well. He had a bit of an up and down debut, but settled in the fourth quarter there against the Bears, led the comeback. 2 touchdown passes, 25 yards rushing with a rushing touchdown. It does look like Drake London may play in this one. I'm thinking about using the Vikings in my survivor pool because Atlanta's pretty banged up, and Vikings are pretty good favorite at home. A little worried maybe if London's available, but I think that makes the game more competitive and will keep McCarthy having to throw the ball. Atlanta also, shut down Bucky Irving pretty well on the ground, so they may be one of these pass funnel teams this year. We'll see how the Vikings do against them, but I think McCarthy's a good play this week, and I've got him at QB 12.
The performance that he had was phenomenal in that fourth quarter, and it was something that we wanted to see from him, that we were like, oh, a tough Bears defense. They were missing a couple players defensively, but it didn't look super great to start, as we all know, but then that fourth quarter was absolutely tremendous, and now I think JJ McCarthy, I think he's in a very good streaming category right now, but I think if he does this a couple more times, he could definitely be in a more every week, you just kind of got to play him because the weapons are great. He seems to be settling in, and we got to remember that was his first ever NFL game on Monday night. So he should theoretically continue to get better, especially the more removed he gets from that knee injury that he had last year before the season even started. My quarterback sneaky start, I debated putting him in last week. Thank goodness I didn't, because he didn't have necessarily that great of a game. But it is Drake Maye. I still believe in Drake Maye, even though the performance last week wasn't all that necessarily fantastic from a fantasy standpoint. He did have 287 passing yards. They threw a lot because they kind of needed to against Vegas, who quickly went up, even though the Patriots were winning like 10-7 at one point. But they threw the ball 46 times to where Drake Maye had 287 yards, a touchdown, and a pick. Where I think the Maye performance lacked was in the rushing category. He only had 4 carries for 11 yards. I think that was a career low based on his game log in games that he started last year, was 11 rushing yards. And so I'm expecting that to tick back up. He gets a Miami Dolphins defense who got absolutely obliterated by Daniel Jones in the Indianapolis Colts last week. So I'm kind of expecting good things this week if that Dolphins defense is really that bad, that we can get some good passing numbers early as a reason for why they get up kind of early if they are going to kill Miami. But then also I'm looking to see if Drake Maye could run a little bit more this week than he did last week, more in tune with what we saw last year. And if he does all that, we could be looking at a potential top 12 performance.
I like it.
Moving on to the tight end position, the other onesie position. John, who do we have this week in week 2 as a sneaky start?
I'm going to go with Kyle Pitts, but he might turn into a pumpkin once Darnell Mooney comes back. So I'm looking up, Mooney's practice status, and it looks like he might practice this week. So if he does, then Pitts is probably going to sink down the rankings a little bit, and then I would suggest people maybe start Juwan Johnson for the Saints, who played all but one snap, 11 targets. So I just would want to mention him as well. But Pitts caught 7 of 8 targets, 59 yards against the Bucs. I think you mentioned him last week in one of our podcasts, how well he did against Tampa the previous season, and that continued. And I think the same game that J.J. McCarthy's in, Minnesota more vulnerable against the pass than they are against the run. They were 20th in adjusted fantasy points allowed to tight ends last year, and Cole Kmet had a long catch against them. Colston Loveland was kind of involved last week, but Pitts with Mooney injured, London injured, could have a good game if his role stays like this. I mean, 8 targets for him is pretty significant for any tight end, really. But he's not consistently getting this sort of usage, but if he does against Minnesota, he should deliver.
I think the other interesting part about the Minnesota Vikings Chicago Bears game last week was Olamide Zaccheaus' usage out of the slot. That might be a Ben Johnson thing. But I mean, he had, I think 4 or 5 receptions for 40 or 50 yards somewhere in there. So if you're thinking that some of that kind of be translated over to the tight end position for Kyle Pitts, that could be an interesting spot, especially like we said, with both London and Mooney kind of banged up. And I do think that they're both kind of set to play this week, but I don't think that necessarily means that Kyle Pitts is not still a solid or sneaky start. But I do like the Juwan Johnson call as well, based on his uses last week. I think he had 100% route participation, Juwan Johnson. Crazy. My tight end sneaky start, which I believe is a repeat from last week, is Brenton Strange. He gets a matchup against the Cincinnati Bengals, who just last week allowed 100 receiving yards on 10 receptions to the combination of David Njoku and Harold Fannin. Fannin being actually the leading receiver of the two. But if those targets kind of get consolidated a little bit into just one Brenton Strange, maybe he's not going to eclipse 100, but that could be really good production for the tight end, who actually had 4 catches for 59 yards last week, led the Jaguars in receiving yards. And, the Bengals have been pretty weak against the tight end position for a couple of years now. And it seems like they're just going to continue to be a good defensive target with your tight end. So give me some Brenton Strange as a good streaming tight end option this week at the tight end position.
I wrote up Strange for my article as well. 59 yards as he had last week, and then he averaged 3.6 catches, 34 yards, 0.25 touchdowns on 4.9 targets per game in the 8 games that Ingram missed last year. And those are solid tight end 2 numbers. And you do expect rookie tight ends to take a leap or break out a bit in their second season. That's the most common season for breakouts at the tight end position.
So let's move on to the 2 more fun positions, the running backs and the wide receivers. We'll start with running backs. And John, you can kick things off again with the running back sneaky start.
Yeah, I'm going to go with a kind of a boring touches type pick. I mean, I did write up Breece Hall and Travis Etienne for the article, but I want to highlight Javonte Williams in a boring standpoint, because they're going to probably be in positive game script against the Giants. The Giants 28th in adjusted fantasy points allowed to the running back position. They allowed a big game to JCM in week 1, and Javonte was the bell cow. It's 77% of the snaps, 17 touches into 64 yards and 2 touchdowns. As I mentioned, the Giants, they just gave up 133 rushing yards and a touchdown on 20 carries, 6.7 yards per carry to the Commanders' backfield. So I don't expect that sort of production from Javonte Williams, but he looks like a solid RB2 this week.
He might continue to be a solid RB2. I think Jaden Blue is still not practicing. So as long as Jaden Blue continues to be out, it's going to be Javonte Williams. Positive matchup. If you had him on your bench last week, you were sad that you had all those points just chilling on your bench. But it's possible that you can just start throwing him into your starting lineup now, especially in a good matchup against the New York Giants. My running back sneaky start is a guy who might have been on a lot of people's waivers, or if you were listening to this show over the course of the offseason, or really in August, you might have already had him stashed. It was Dylan Sampson, the rookie running back for the Cleveland Browns. He immediately took over in week 1 as the RB1 for the Browns. He doubled Jerome Ford's carries, 12-6. He had 8 receptions as well, so 20 total touches for Dylan Sampson against the Cincinnati Bengals last week. He draws a road matchup against the Baltimore Ravens, so we could be expecting a very similar, more pass-heavy game script for Cleveland going up against the high-powered Baltimore Ravens offense, who Baltimore also just had given up 100 total yards and a touchdown to James Cook on Sunday night, which included 5 receptions for 58 yards through the air. So if Sampson continues being the RB1, especially as Quinshon Judkins figures out his crap, and he's getting all this receiving workload for Joe Flacco, the receiving work in and of itself is enough for a nice floor game. But if he does anything more and is any more efficient in the rushing game as the RB1 for Cleveland, we could be looking at, a top 24, top 20 type of running back kind of off your waiver wires this week.
I wrote up Sampson for sneaky starts as well. Same sort of line of thinking on this. And I think Judkins probably is available to play, but I don't think he's going to be completely up to speed. So at this point, I still feel confident, given the week 1 usage, that Sampson is the RB1 there. And it's another reason to be suspicious of Mary Kay Cabot's reporting, because she came out before week 1 and said that Jerome Ford was going to be in a workhorse role. And we saw how that went. That didn't happen at all. So I agree with the Sampson call. It's a tough matchup from a rushing standpoint, because Baltimore is usually pretty stout against the run. But he should see, 4 or 5 catches, especially if the Browns get into garbage time.
Moving on to the wide receiver position. Well, I'll just say we're keeping it in the same game. Who are we looking at here for the wide receiver sneaky start, John?
Well, I just wanted to correct you on one thing with the Jaden Blue. He was a healthy scratch last week. So something's going on. He's not missing practice. He's practicing. He's just not up to speed as far as I know. And
he's just not great
playing. He's not active. So there is that to consider with Javonte as well. My receiver, and I'm just going to keep harping on it, is Cedric Tillman. Experts consensus ranking at Fantasy Pros, wide receiver 46. I've got him 10 spots higher. I don't understand what we're doing here with Cedric Tillman. His over-under on his yardage is 37.5. Don't understand that. I'm playing the over on that. He had 5 for 52 and a touchdown on 8 targets in week 1. They're going to have a tough time running the ball against Baltimore. They're probably going to fall behind. It's going to be a pass-heavy game script for the Browns, and he if you remember, after the Amari Cooper trade, he was on a 4-game tear. He was the fantasy wide receiver 8 on a per game basis and had the 6th most targets in that stretch last year. Yes, it was a different quarterback. It was Jameis, but Jameis and Joe Flacco have a lot of similarities at this point in their respective careers. I'm just going to keep harping on starting Cedric Tillman until the industry catches up here.
Especially when you saw Keon Coleman go out for 8 for 112 and 1 against them on Sunday night. And it could have been a second touchdown on that final drive, their game-winning field goal drive. He got tackled at the 9-yard line on like a shoestring ankle tripping tackle that he could have just easily scored, and we would be talking about like a 35-point performance from Keon Coleman. So, and Shakir had 6 for 64 too. So if you're looking at the 2 wide receivers for Buffalo and what they did, and if you're looking at, what Tillman did last week and did all last year and without Amari Cooper, I agree with you. It's so easy. It's I wonder how many weeks we're going to go until he finally gets the respect that he deserves. It'll be fun to see. My wide receiver sneaky start, sticking with my Drake Maye call at the quarterback position, I'm going with somebody who seems to be in the conversation for his wide receiver 1 role, in Kayshon Boutte. He was fantastic last week, had 6 catches for 103 yards on a team-high 8 targets. He did tie with Hunter Henry for targets, but that was a team-high 8 targets, 1 more than Stephon Diggs. They had a connection last year. It seems to be carrying over to this year, even though that I believe that Kyle Williams could overtake Kayshon Boutte. It seems like, at least right now, the Boutte has that nod based on his performance and connection that he had with Maye last year. And Kyle Williams still, I think, recovering a little bit from injury in August. I also just want to point out that Kayshon Boutte, from like a dynasty Devy standpoint, was like a very heralded prospect in college. That he was a 5-star recruit, had phenomenal freshman production at LSU, and then had an ankle injury as a sophomore that kind of derailed that season. Didn't do all that well junior year. Then he had this gambling issue that I think really dragged him down in the NFL draft. So it might just be possible that Kayshon Boutte is perhaps the best wide receiver on this Patriots offense right now. And we're just kind of starting to see that come to fruition a little bit. And like I said, with Drake Maye thing against this Miami Dolphins defense that looked abysmal, and it doesn't look like they have much of a secondary. I mean, we could very easily be seeing a kind of breakout year from Kayshon Boutte as Drake Maye's wide receiver 1.
Daniel Jones, 272 yards passing. Michael Pittman, 6 for 80 and a touchdown. Boutte reportedly had a great camp and has carried this over. I was, targeting Kyle Williams late in drafts, and then started to see these reports where he's just not in the top 3. So it's going to be a wait and see with Kyle Williams, and Boutte is startable. I wrote him up for sneaky starts as well.
He's in my DraftKings lineup. He's like 4,500 this week on DraftKings for DFS. So it's it feels like him and Tillman are going to be like the 2 wide receivers that, if they just continue to produce, they might be slept on a little bit for the next few weeks until people start to catch up. So the last segment that we're going to run through today is we are going through a Bleacher Nation fantasy card. If you have not yet downloaded the new Bleacher Nation fantasy app, number 1, you should do so just for the notifications. The notifications alone are the fastest in the entire industry. You get injury alerts, you get trade notifications in the NFL, or all the other, any NFL news you want is all through the Bleacher Nation fantasy app, and they are the fastest in the industry. They're faster than Sleeper, Bleacher Report, way faster than ESPN. So that alone is reason enough to download the app. The second reason is to play the Bleacher Nation fantasy game, which is a pick'em game, very similar to Prize Picks or Underdog, that you can, 3x, 6x, 8x, 10x your money if you pick the right over-unders on MLB, NBA coming up soon, and NFL especially. So I will mention, if you like all of our sneaky starts, you can go in. And if you want to just hit the more on all 8 of our players that we mentioned today, you can 100x your money if all 8 of them hit. I don't know if that will ever actually happen, but I would be very curious to see that all 8 of them do hit at some point this year. Turn $1 into 100. That'd be fun to see. But we're going to throw together a nice little 3-leg card for a 6x payout. John, do you want to kick us off with your leg?
Yeah, I mentioned it earlier. Cedric Tillman over 37.5 receiving yards. When you see it under 40, just hit the smash button or smash the like buttons. Hit the over button. Smash the over button. Do what you got to do. Whatever you have to do. Tillman over.
All of it. I'm putting 2 in here because Kayshon Boutte was at 34.5 receiving yards, and if it's very similar, it's the same thing with Cedric Tillman. If he really is going to be the wide receiver 1, draws a plus matchup against Miami, that should be a pretty good line for Kayshon Boutte to hit the over on. The other one I also threw in here, which gave me more confidence because he said he was in your sneaky starts article too, is Breece Hall's over of 54.5. He was the workhorse last week. Braylon Allen had a few rushes early, but Breece Hall just looked better and better. He honestly looks more like the 2022-2023 version of Breece Hall than he did the 2024 version. And they also get a phenomenal matchup this week against the Buffalo Bills, who just got absolutely demolished by Derrick Henry. Now, Derrick Henry does that to most anybody that he plays against, but Buffalo has had a weaker rush defense in the past, and I think Derrick Henry getting 200 rushing yards means that Breece Hall can get to 55. So give me that one too.
I like it, and I would also look at the receiving over 19. I just looked; it's 19.5. At Prize Picks, I took the combined rush receiving, which is 78.5. But the Bills gave up the most receiving yards to running backs last year, and total yards per game they allowed 140 to enemy running backs last year. So I think all the Breece Hall overs look pretty good, and especially the receiving. I think because this probably is going to end up going to get a few catches anyway, but this could end up a negative game script for the Jets as well. So 19.5 seems quite low for him. He looked really good.
Yes, he did. Yeah. So if you play those 3, Tillman over 37.5, Boutte over 34.5, and Breece Hall over 54.5 rushing, that will 6x your payout on this Sunday on the Bleacher Nation Fantasy app. We are also running a promotion that if you deposit money, you get a 50% deposit match. So if you up to $100, so if you deposit up to $200, you get up to $100 back in a deposit bonus that you can continue to play on the Bleacher Nation Fantasy app. And hopefully this one hits for you. Maybe you drop $4.44 for a little bit of extra luck on this 6x payout on Bleacher Nation Fantasy. But that's going to do it for this week's episode, week 2 sneaky starts. We appreciate everybody for watching or listening on either YouTube or any of the podcast apps. Make sure if you guys have not yet signed up for 4for4 for the subscription online to get access to all of Paulson's projections, to get access to our other in-season tools, articles, all that other stuff, make sure you do so using the promo code YouTube at checkout for 25% off. That also goes towards any of the other plans. So if you are interested in signing up for the DFS plan or betting or the Sharp Stack, the new Sharp Stack betting tool that has been phenomenal to use so far and has had a couple pretty insane bets already hit off of that tool. You can do so with that code YouTube, 25% off for any plan on 4for4. And sign up today to get all of that extra content and assistance for you to win your fantasy leagues, win DraftKings, win betting, all that fantastic stuff. I'm going to wrap it up now because I talk way too much. We appreciate you guys listening. Have a fantastic weekend. I hope all of your week 2 matchups are a victory for you, and we'll catch you guys next time on the Most Accurate Podcast. Peace.